So now we will be solving an example question which will help you in understanding that how do we correct the errors which do affect the balancing of trial balance and how these are corrected through the suspense account. So we have this question in front of us which says that a business prepared a trial balance which failed to balance a shortage of $78 on the credit side. So this means that the debit side was more than the credit side by how much? By $78, and therefore this 78 was inserted on the credit side of the trial balance, and for that a suspense account was opened, of course, with the value of $78 on the credit side, and later on the errors were discovered. So since these errors are now discovered, we have to correct these errors one by one. We have two requirements: first to show the correcting entries, and then secondly to prepare the suspense account, right? So we will be correcting all these errors one by one. Let's begin. First error says purchases daybook had been overcast by $10. So what has happened? Purchases daybook, this means that an overstated value by $10 has been transferred to the purchases T account, which is maintained in the general ledger. So right now it is overstated by $10. So this means that the debit side is more by $10 than the credit side. The problem is just in one account. So if I want to correct this error, I have to decrease my purchases account, right? By how much? By $10. And how do we do that? We have to now credit purchases by $10, right? So the correcting entry would be, for first error, purchases should now be credited by $10 because right now they are overstated. And in order to complete my correcting entry, I have to show something on the debit side as well with the same amount, that is $10. And since the error does not involve any other account, the problem was just in the purchases account, so this error will be corrected by debiting suspense account by the same value, that is $10. Right, so this is how we correct the errors through suspense account. This was just the first example. Now let's move to the second one. It says bank charges 22. Bank charges, we know it is an expense, right? Bank charges 22 entered in the cash book. Very good. What is double entry? We debit the expense account, bank charges should have been debited and cash book should have been credited, and it is being correctly credited, right? As it says, bank charges entered in the cash book have not been posted to the bank charges account. So what is this? Single entry is made for the transaction. How this should have been recorded? Originally we should have debited the bank charges with 22 and we should have credited the cash book. We have correctly credited the cash book, but we have not made the debit part of the double entry. Again, the problem is just in one account. So if we have not debited bank charges account, in order to correct the error, we should debit it now. So bank charges will now be credited with the original value, that is 22. But again, in order to complete the correcting entry, I have to correct it through the suspense account. In this case, suspense account will be credited by 22. There is no problem in the cash book, it has been correctly credited, right? Let's move to the third one. 125 received from the sale of old computer, right? We are selling a non-current asset, disposal of a non-current asset. We have received 125 from its sale. These are the disposal proceeds. Has been entered in the sales account. Right. So what have we done? We have incorrectly credited the sales account by what is the value? 125. However, sales should not have been touched for such transactions. Sales account is not used to record a disposal of a non-current asset, right? How this should have been originally recorded? This is error number 3. We should have debited the cash book, and we have correctly debited the cash book, as the question is silent, as the error is silent about that entry. So this means that the debit part has been correctly recorded. Cash book or bank cash, it has been correctly debited by 125. However, the problem is on the credit side. We have recorded it in the sales account instead of the disposal account. Disposal account is credited for the disposal proceeds, and we have recorded that in the sales account. So now we have to eliminate this value from the sales account. The error is silent about the side, so this means that it has been recorded on its nature. The nature of sales account is credit, right? So credit part of the double entry is being recorded wrongly. That is why only the credit part, the sales account, should have been corrected with the original account that should have been used. So right now we have incorrectly credited sales. In order to correct this error, error number 3, now I should debit my sales account with 125. It should not have been involved at all, my sales, that is my revenue account. Instead, I should have credited my disposal of computers account with the disposal proceeds, that is 125, right? So this is how we will correct this error. Let's move to our second last error, which says a private purchase of 140 had been included in the business purchases, right? So in the business purchases account means you have debited the purchases wrongly, as it did not belong to the business. So business purchases account should not have been used for this transaction, right? We know that if the owner is extracting or using the business cash or bank for private transactions, that is recorded in another account, which is the drawings account. So instead of recording this in the drawings account, we have incorrectly debited the purchases account. Again, the side is not mentioned, but it will be on its nature, that is purchases have been incorrectly debited. So what has happened? Purchases are right now overstated by 140. So in order to decrease this value from the account, from purchases account, I will now have to credit my purchases account. And now the correcting entry will not be made in the suspense account, because instead of debiting drawings account, I had incorrectly debited my purchases account. So since nothing has been recorded on the drawings side, on the drawings account, I now have to show that in the correct account. So now suspense account won't be used to correct this error, rather drawings will be debited with the original value. So not every time in a question in the past papers as well, you will be given all the errors that will be corrected through the suspense account, or all the errors that will not be corrected through the suspense account. Of course, there will be a mix of both these types of errors, like as we saw in the third one as well and in this one as well. So drawings will be now debited to show private expenditure from the business cash or bank, and purchases will be credited to eliminate the effect of the wrong entry, right? Let's move to the last error, which says a sale of goods to Amir 230, right? We have sold some goods to Amir. How this should have been recorded? Sales credit, Amir debit was correctly entered in the sales day book. Very good. Well, this means that it has been correctly posted then in the sales account as well, that is the credit part is correctly recorded. However, what has happened? But entered in the personal account as 320. So the value of the original transaction was 230. However, we have recorded this as 320. So there is an overstatement of $90 in just Amir's account, not in the sales account. Error number 5, right? How have we recorded? We have correctly credited the sales account by 230, but we have debited Amir's account by 320, which is more $90, right? Okay. So now since Amir has been debited more by $90, I have to now reduce his account balance by crediting his account. The correcting entry will be credit Amir to bring the value of the transaction to its original amount, credit Amir by 90, and since there is no problem in the sales account, it has been correctly credited by 230. So the correcting entry will be made by debiting suspense account by the same figure, $90. So this is how we correct the errors which do affect the balancing of trial balance sometimes, and sometimes which won't be affecting the trial balance. right? So we have completed the first part of the question, which was to show the correcting entries. Now we just have to prepare the suspense account. So in the question, in the beginning, we were given with the balance of the suspense account, which was a shortage on the credit side. So if the balance is given to you, start with the difference as per trial balance in your suspense account. In this case, it will be on the credit side. So let's write that down, difference as per trial balance. Now one by one we will be looking for the correcting entries which we made through the suspense account. In other words, the entries which involved the suspense account. So we have in this example, we have the first one which involved the correction through suspense account, and the second one as well, and not in the third or fourth one, and then in the fifth one. So what is happening in the first error? We are debiting suspense account because of purchases by $10. So the suspense account will be debited by 10, right? So first one, debit the suspense account by $10 because of purchases. In the second one, what is happening? We are now crediting per suspense account by 22 because of bank charges, right? You remember bank charges were not recorded, so bank charges were debited, and suspense will be credited by 22. So suspense will be credited because of bank charges. And in the last one, the fifth entry, suspense is again being debited by 90 because of Amir, right? We overstated the value of the transaction in Amir's account, right? So this is how we prepare the suspense account, starting with the difference as per trial balance if that is given to you in the question. Sometimes that will not be given to you. You will be just asked to prepare the correcting entries, and after showing them in the suspense account, the original difference will be calculated by yourself, and you will be showing that on whichever the side it was, the lower side. So right now my debit side totals 100, 90 plus 10, and my credit side also totals 100, which means that you have correctly corrected all the errors, as there is no further balance in the suspense account. So this means that all errors have been corrected, right? Ideally there should remain no balance in the suspense account. However, there can be some cases where there still remains a balance in the suspense account. This means that some errors are still there in the accounts which you have not yet located, and there still comes a balance in the suspense account. So now how do we go about that? For instance, let's understand this through example. I have the same suspense account in front of me which I have just prepared, difference as per trial balance, bank charges on the credit side, and Amir and purchases on the debit side, right? As you can see. However, I have just changed one thing, and that is the difference is now $50. The difference was now $50 in this example. Originally it was 78, right? Originally it was 78, but suppose if it was $50 and you have correctly corrected the errors, but there now still remains a balance, right? Now the debit side will total 100 as previously, but now my credit side will total just $72, right? 50 plus 22 is 72. So this means that again there is a balance, there is a shortage on the credit side, and how do we deal with that? Now if you cannot locate further errors, you just have to balance the suspense account. And how do we do that? We just have to write over here on the shorter side, balance carried down with the difference, that will be 100 less 72, and that will be $28. $28 was shortage on the credit side, so we have inserted that as a balance CD figure for suspense account. And then for the next period you will bring down that balance on the opposite side. In this case, balance brought down on the debit side of $28 in case your suspense account does not balance, right? So if there is a debit balance in the suspense account, how do we bring it forward in the financial statements? That will be shown as a current asset in my statement of financial position, right? In the current assets section you will write suspense account along with other current assets, inventory, receivables, other receivables, bank and cash, and suspense account as well if there is a balance brought down on the debit side. Suppose if in this case everything else remaining the same, now my difference would have been $90 again on the shorter on the credit side, so $90 on the credit side. In this case, what would be my totals? 90 plus 22, that would be 112 on the credit side, but there is just $100 correction on the debit side. So now the balance CD would have been inserted on the debit side, balance carried down, that would be 112 less $100, a difference of $12 on the debit side. In this case, it would have been brought forward on the credit side, $12. So this means that if there is a shortage on the debit side which has been brought forward as a balance brought down figure on the credit side, so a credit balance in suspense account would be shown, of course, as a current liability in my statement of financial position. So under current liabilities section, along with other liabilities, for instance trade payables, bank overdraft, other payables, we would have written suspense account balance as well. But this only happens if your suspense account fails to balance even after correcting all the errors discovered by the business, right? So this is how we make the correcting entries, this is how we prepare the suspense account, and how do we go about it if there still remains a balance in the suspense account. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll be solving a past paper question involving the errors affecting and not affecting trial balance.